3 o'clock on October 27th, 2025 for work session. There will be a work session followed by a special meeting for the City Council of Trinidad. The City Council Chamber, City Hall, 135 North Adams Street, Trinidad, Colorado. All right. The following items are on file for consideration of this City Council. Number 1, follow-up items. Item A, Southside Ball Field. Who's presenting?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Marty Velasquez is going to come forward and present about our investments in Southside. This question came up at the regular meeting last Tuesday night.
Members of the council, acting mayor, good afternoon. How's everybody?
Good.
In 2019, a Southside renovation project was moved forward at Southside baseball fields. In April of 2020, it was completed. That was during the COVID pandemic. But it was completed. The project consisted of new sod on all 4 baseball fields, a mesh for gophers underneath the sod, and up to this point, it's worked. We haven't had a single gopher in there, so that worked. It was a mess. The fields were a mess from the gophers up there. It was very bad. Also, we put in new infield mix in all 4 fields. The drainage was fixed to run towards the outfields on the fields. Now, when the field was originally designed in 1995-96, when it was completed, it was supposed to be 4 fields on equal, they were all supposed to be the same level, but being with the sandstone and shale up there, they decided to 2-tier them. So that is why the upper fields are higher than the lower fields. Now that's what creates the drainage problem. The water, any hard rain, the water runs from there to the top, and then the 2 fields on top are flat, but the bathrooms are flat even with the ground. So anytime hard rain comes, there's not a whole lot you can do. A drain grate there would help tremendously. It would help. And just an idea of what that project cost, the final cost with change orders and everything came in at $822,057.19, completed in 2020 of April. And that was the logistics of it. New sod, new infield dirt. Oh, and also a new warning track was put in. And that was dug down so that the water would run off the fields on each field from the grass, so it wasn't setting and soggy. And it seemed to work. We're to the point where we need to add some new warning track material, but it's worked to this point.
Okay. Were there any questions for Mr. Velasquez?
I'm wondering if, or you, Ms. Marshall, know, is there a new drain that's planned for the renovation of the bathrooms down there?
There is.
Okay.
Mr. Mason spoke to that, but we
Okay.
can certainly ask him to confirm that there is.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, of course, also I'll add that there was some ADA work, so that made it easier for people to get into both sides of the fields, one at the bottom and one on the upper fields. They kind of put some extra pavement in there to kind of level it out to make ADA access a little easier.
Great.
And that was also done.
Any further questions?
Were there any drains for the original plan back in the 90s? Was there?
No, I don't believe, I had just started at that time when that project was completed. And I don't remember seeing the plans for drainage then. And the bathrooms were built afterwards by the college. They weren't built when the fields were built. They came in afterwards. The college kind of donated them, that whole little concession area and the restrooms. That was their project.
No further questions? All right.
Thank you
very much. Item 1A, update on the audible signals.
Yes, Ms. Jackson's going to come forward and provide that update
Thank you.
for you. This was once again another question from last Tuesday night.
Yes, good afternoon, Council and Pro Tem Mayor. I'm Jenny Jackson, Project Manager for the City of Trinidad. We recently installed some audible pedestrian signals at the intersection of Main and Oak, Maple and Main, and then there was another one, Commercial and Main. So we put up these signals to help the ADA and handicapped or disabled community. We do have a tone. It's a locator tone that beeps every 1 second and should be heard from 6 to 12 feet away from the buttons. We have went out Friday and turned those down a little bit. We're still under contract with Morton Electric, who installed them, and they're working on the punch list. So we turn the signals down, and then there's a second also signal that they do. It's an audible signal. So you hear the beeping, and it helps a vision impaired person be able to locate the crossings. And then once you push the button, it tells you to wait. The audible signal, or excuse me, locator tone still keeps going so that if there's anybody else in the area, they can also find it as well. Then it tells you to wait, and then it tells you when you could cross. So we have turned those down and we have followed the standards, and it's 5 decibels above the audible surrounding tones. So we're trying to find our sweet spot where you can still hear it, but it's not drowned out with the traffic surrounding. So we're working with Morton to get those in the sweet spot so that we can preserve the safety of the people who are trying to cross it, but also not annoy everybody who drives by.
Right. Questions?
Yeah, I have, go ahead, you.
Is there a standard audible level in comparison for our town as opposed to maybe other cities our size?
No, it's kind of based upon the surrounding sounds that are in the intersection. There is also...
Well, yeah, because if you have buildings there as well, close to that proximity, it's going to muffle.
Yes, or the wind
Or the
could
wind.
take the sound away.
Right.
So we went out Friday and we all stood 12 feet away and we walked until we could hear it, and we kind of found that
Happy
sweet
medium.
spot.
Okay.
But it will be a work in progress. And the contract is not completed yet. Morton is doing some punch list items.
Okay.
We got, well, I guess, we'll talk to you because you're gonna be doing it. Are there any future plans for putting more of those in? Like over here by Sonic and,
Yes.
and up here?
Well, it's only where we have signalized intersections. So
You can't do that at the roundabout? because
No.
People walk around there, or there's more traffic there.
yeah, there's no way to stop the traffic to
Right,
let
because
people
of that.
cross, so they have to kind of use their ears and their senses to be able to know when to cross those. Any future projects we do, we will make sure that those are installed on all our lights.
Can we put up some kind of a sign on each side of that to watch for pedestrians?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll make a note
Because
of
you
that.
have a deal up on
Yeah,
going up Santa Fe Trail.
crosswalk ahead and.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I don't think so, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 1A is an update for Alley A.
And Mr. Just is going to provide that update.
Good afternoon, everybody. So basically, we're about 33% done on Dollar, which is, it doesn't really an accurate number. The reason being is we got some big items coming up this week, like the concrete and the terraces, and those are higher dollar items. So once those are completed, it'll probably put us in the 50 to 60%. So Jenny that just sat down, we were talking about this. Contractor's he's on schedule. So anyway, I'm open for questions.
When you say 33%, clarification.
Yeah, so that's based on the dollars that we paid out for the total cost of the contract. But it's a lot of underground work that's been done. It's not really seen. Some of the higher dollar items, the flat work is coming in, is gonna happen this week. Then after that, they got light posts that are coming in, light poles, hand railing. Those are the bigger dollar items. So, it's not an indication really of completion of work. It's more of a completion of the dollars that have been spent. But that's what we're using to compare it right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just a gauge, a metric that you're using.
Yeah. Like I said, Carl texted me this morning. He's got a local contractor. They're wanting to do the concrete pour on Thursday. So it's stamped concrete. There's a lot of flat work that's
really about ready to be, we were out, we tested last week, so densities are good. So,
I think it's on target to be done the 1st of January, is that correct?
that's correct. It was originally December 25th, and with a few change orders that we've had on that job, I think we're right around the 1st of January, just like.
Thank you.
Is it,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
is it, Mr. Nesta, is it planned to be closed off until it's completed, or is there any stage of it they're gonna, people be able to walk?
No, the plan is to be completely closed off until they're completed.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? I have two just cosmetic questions. When that's done, is there going to be any, I don't know what those are called, like the shade sails that keep the sun off that in any fashion?
There is no shade sails in there. There are some decorative features. We already have them. So it's going to get lined with cable. Going to have this outdoor lighting, the lights, the pendant lights, not pendant, but you know, like it's identical to what's under Bella Luna right now. The little LED light strings, they're going to crisscross through there, and then you got these, lack of better, Jenny, you remember what they call those plastic?
Like they're decorative flowers?
Yeah, they're flowers, and they're going to kind of be in between the lights and stuff, but there are no shade structures.
The other question I had, you said it's going to be stamped concrete. What's the finish going to?
It's a light slate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're really being ADA conscious now. We can't
Yeah.
have anything that's over 1/4 of an inch, so it's a very light slate. It's going to be
Nice.
stained.
So it's not going to be raw concrete. It'll have a finished look. That would be great.
Yes. Yeah, the terraces do. Now, the sidewalk that's adjacent, that we're just going regular gray on that with the broom finish.
Okay. No further questions, I don't think.
You want an update on pickleball? Because we just
If we can, yeah.
Who doesn't want an update on pickleball?
we just met with this morning. Jenny, Nate, and Gary were out there, and we're real close on that. They're doing some final additions to the fence. They had performed some cleanup, so real close on having that completed out this week.
That would be great. I mean, I think there's still weather for it, so that'll be good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very nice facility. If you guys have not been out there, it turned out nice.
Good update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
So,
Thanks, Bob.
Tara, before we move on, I just had a question.
Sure.
Several of these I know were brought up from the public. Will they be reached out to and contacted independently of this?
They will be, and I'll also include these updates in my council report next Wednesday night.
Okay.
We'll be doing both.
All right, thank you very much. So
Sure.
item 2 is the 2026 Enterprise Fund Review. I presume that's you?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. We do have staff in the audience today, and once we go through the memo, we'd be happy to bring them up. If you have questions similar to the general fund review we did 2 weeks ago. The 2026 draft budget was delivered to City Council on October 7th. It's a living document and will be modified and updated between October 7th and November 14th when the next version is delivered to City Council for first reading on Tuesday, November 18th. I want to clarify a couple of terms that are used in the enterprise fund, just in case you're not familiar with them. Pilot, P-I-L-O-T, is payment in lieu of taxes. These are payments to the local government, which is the general fund, from the enterprise fund to offset the loss of property tax revenue on tax exempt properties. So all of the properties that we own that are in the enterprise funds are tax exempt as they're owned by us. However, we lose the property taxes on those properties. So the fund, each of the enterprise funds, pays the general fund payment in lieu of taxes. And as we go through each of the fund, I'll note what those are, okay? And they vary. Some of the revenues in water are the smallest, but they actually own the most assets, so their pilot is the highest. So, service reimbursement is a portion of salary expense paid to the general fund for services rendered. So there are a number of salaries that come out of the general fund, which we covered 2 weeks ago. This includes portions of salaries of the city manager, the city clerk, human resources, finance, IT, fleet, and engineering. Each of those departments provides services to each of the enterprise funds. So we do a service reimbursement that varies a bit. It's about 15% on 3 of the funds and about 5% on 1 of the funds. So, and that is broken out over those salaries, which are spread out. Any questions about pilot or service reimbursements? Okay. Let's do the Power and Light Fund review. These are broken down between revenues and expenses. Starting with revenues, we have modified the revenues in the draft budget delivered to you on October 7th to reflect a 7.5% increase in commercial rates and a 4% increase in residential rates per the ordinance you passed this February 2025. We'll be discussing rate increases scheduled for the 2026 work session in January 12th. And at that time, we'll review these increases and determine that these increases are wanted or needed for implementation in March of 2026. So if you remember, you passed a number of ordinances in February of this year, and those ordinances required rate increases in all of the enterprises every year in March. So in January, we'll be reviewing these increases that we've budgeted now to see if we need to increase them or if they're not needed. So we've gone ahead and amended the draft budget to reflect these increases. Updated revenue figures for commercial sales is $4 million. For residential sales is $4,155,000. Other operating revenues in Power and Light Fund include meter connect fees, water heater permit fees, street lighting, dusk to dawn security lights. The revenues from those sources are $291,000. Additional revenue streams include our new solar lease of $20,000 in revenue annually, as well as operating and maintenance reimbursements from ARPA. ARPA is the Arkansas River Power Authority. They are an authority that we belong to, and we receive a bit of revenue back from them. Additional revenues also include bad debts and penalties collected, jobs completed as part of new development. If we need to install a transformer as part of new development, we bill that back to the development company. Sales tax commissions, these are small amounts of sales tax we collect that we keep as a result of filing our taxes regularly and on time. And then miscellaneous revenues. Total operating revenues, which include everything mentioned thus far, are $8,581,000. Now we do have some non-operating revenues in the Power and Light Fund. That includes grant revenue. In 2026, we anticipate $4 million in grant revenue for infrastructure upgrades to the substation, which includes breakers, transformer, and voltage conversions. These are currently located behind the power plant. I'm sure Mr. Bachicha would take you out and show them to you if you would like to know what those look like. This is our portion of a much larger grant being put together by ARPA. They're doing a very large grant that will include all of the member organizations. Additionally, the fund is anticipating a small amount of interest income of $35,000. So the non-operating revenues are $4,035,000. In the past, we've had operating transfers as revenue streams into the fund. We're not anticipating any of those in 2026. These happened primarily during the times when we would receive a lot of marijuana revenue, and you would want to allocate some of that revenue to a project in Power and Light. Then we would make a transfer from the general fund to Power and Light in that amount. So we're not anticipating any transfers. So total in Power and Light revenues are $12,616,000. Any questions about the revenue streams? Okay, it's pretty standard. Okay, let's talk about expenses, operating expenses. This includes 17 employees which work both in the operations of the power plant, that's where 6 employees work, and the line crew, that's where 10 employees work, and the management of the fund, which is our director. Additionally, the fund pays a quarter of the salaries of the 7 employees in utility billing department. This budget is primarily flat with a slight decrease in property and liability insurance through CIRSA. That decrease makes next year's payment $90,940, which represents a 19% decrease from previous years. We really did well with CIRSA this year. A slight increase in pilot. Pilot is set at 3.75% of the revenues generated by the sale of electricity to customers. That pilot represents an expense of $316,312.50. And there's a slight decrease in, there's a slight decrease in service reimbursement, making the service reimbursement for 2026 $206,901. I'll remind you, when we did several reorganizations, we changed the human resources director position to be a human resource manager, which is a lower salary. We also changed the finance director position to be a finance manager, which is a little bit lower salary. You may remember I called both of those out as part of service reimbursement. So service reimbursement is a percentage of salaries, and salaries are lower this next year. So service reimbursement's a little bit less. We're not expecting any major increases in the power purchase and transmission agreements, which are managed through ARPA. Our budgeting is consistent with the proposed budget ARPA presented at the August meeting. We're attending the next ARPA meeting on Thursday, and will reflect any necessary changes and an update to the budget in the next week if we find out some new information. Power purchase has been stable in recent years, and if it continues to be so, we'll move forward as we'll bring those forward as we receive them throughout the year. We may get a notice of a power purchase agreement change in price, and those will come forward as we go forward in the new year. The draft budget, based on what we're anticipating, puts power purchase at $5,283,500 for a total, okay, and then I almost skipped the power plant, sorry about that. One of the best buildings in town. The operation of the power plant budget is consistent with the previous year and budgeted at $41,500. No operational increases are planned for 2026. The operation expenses for our power distribution, which is our line crew, that includes slight increases in meter repair, overhead line repair, and underground line repair. You're going to see this throughout the funds, but these slight increases, they account for what we're anticipating is an increase in the cost of parts. We're seeing parts increase, and some of those we have to source from very far away. The total budget for distribution is $360,950, making the total operating expenses $8,477,164.50. Okay, non-operating expenses. There are several expenses included in capital outlay. One is a new bucket truck. We've budgeted $300,000 to replace the current 2003 bucket truck that has been a workhorse for the department. That particular truck is over 20 years old and has 9,885 hours on it, and the bucket is dead. It will not lift. It is red tagged. Additionally, we have $266,666 budgeted for our match to the $4 million grant for infrastructure improvements. That's an amazing amount of money to receive in grant with such a little match for that. Finally, there's an existing principal and interest payment, which is on the digger truck that was purchased in 2001. That makes our total non-operating expenses $4,790,340 for a total power and light fund expense of $13,267,504.50. So I'll close each of the funds with this next information, and then we'll take some questions if you have them. It's really important that we look at operating revenues versus operating expenditures. That tells us if we're having to go into reserve funds to operate the department. But we also want to give you total fund revenues versus expenses. That includes capital outlay, it includes grants and projects, it includes loan principal and interest. So the total operating revenues for power and light are $8,581,000. The total operating expenses are $8,477,164.50. The difference in that is $103,835.50. This indicates a fund that's operating within its means, the revenues are meeting the expenses. We'll be having this discussion again in January when we talk about rate increases. The total fund revenues versus expenses. Total fund revenues are $12,616,000. Expenses are $13,267,504.50. Now this does put us at a negative $651,504.50, and that is primarily for the bucket truck and the match for the ARPA grant. So questions for Power and Light?
Oh, nothing that I wanted really, but just kind of a couple questions.
Sure.
Well, on the substations, Dave,
Why don't we bring Mr. Bachicha up?
I don't think he wants to walk up and get up here in front of us.
That's okay.
We don't want to-
exercise.
That's just kind of a simple question.
Yeah.
Sure.
On the substations, we have two, right?
Yes.
That's Ennis Bucket.
Yeah.
Are we doing a replacement on the old one as far as
That's what this grant's about, to get a new transformer for that substation and breakers and everything.
that's gonna go in there? And the other one, we don't have to do anything with?
No,
And are we gonna get started on it pretty quick? And I mean, the only reason I'm asking because of the rate increase on material and stuff, and are we planning that for this year or down the road?
We don't have the money
you
yet.
don't have the money yet.
So
It's-
we're waiting for a grant basically
Yes.
is what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I
Yeah.
wanted to find out on that.
If we're able to get that grant, we will receive $4 million, and we will only have to invest $266,666 to do that whole project. So without the $4 million,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have a pathway right now.
Okay. No, I was just curious.
And Rick's overseeing that.
Yes,
We're
yeah.
feeling pretty confident in this grant. He's been
So that's
working on
That's
it.
the one we're doing for ARPA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're getting how much from them? I'll rewrite that.
It'd be love for you to bring it up on Thursday. We can
Well, I
get a
was just kind of
timeline.
curious. I didn't think we were gonna get that much from them, but maybe I misunderstood when we were at the meeting.
Yeah.
But that's good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great. I won't complain about
Yeah.
that. No, I didn't mean to bring you up. I
No,
was
that's
just
good.
gonna ask you a question
Okay.
if we were planning on getting that done soon
Yeah,
because of the
as
expense.
soon as we get
and
the.
We would
okay.
love to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
One second, thank you. So the total fund difference of, and I'm sorry, the total fund difference of a negative 651, where is that coming from?
It's two primary things. One is the 300,000 bucket truck. The other is the non-operating, let me flip back a page.
I mean.
The match for the ARPA grant.
Where are we gonna make that difference up from?
We're making it out of reserves, which is not uncommon when we're buying material and
Okay.
machinery.
And then, what will the status of the reserve be after?
We're gonna present reserves in a few weeks.
All
And we'll
right.
go through those in context with this as well.
Okay. And
We
then,
will.
At that, what is the, after reserves are used, what is the means to replenish that? How does that occur, or can that
So
occur?
we can definitely talk about that. So the way that reserves are replenished is, if you'll go back to that operating revenues versus expenses, that $103,835 from operating, that would go back into reserve.
So in
And then we'll
effect-
be pulling out a reserve to pay for capital outlay.
I mean, in effect, you can sum those together, and
You
we're sort of
can.
looking at a net of 550, not 650 really.
You could, and
Okay.
we'll look at the reserve funding in a few weeks and
Okay,
have this discussion. One of the discussions for next year that we want to drive is reserve funding policies from council.
okay,
So that will help us when we go to budget. If we don't have enough in reserve to actually pursue a project, then we'll be coming to you to have an exception in the policy. If we do have enough, then we'll know what the reserve policy is, but that's really something council needs to address.
okay. And then,
Next year.
I just have one question that's concerning the electric pan. I think, I was under the belief that ARPA was going to do a system readiness evaluation or something to that degree. They were gonna come here.
They're gonna do a model of our system.
Sorry?
They're gonna do a model of our system? They hired CLP to do that?
Yeah, and there, maybe it was just the primary circuits. Was that completed? And if
Yes,
so, what was the results
yes.
of that?
It was. They did a whole system of our system. They did the primary, secondary, they did our whole system. They did a model for system.
We'll be glad to schedule a work session and go
Yeah,
through that
I mean, I
again
think-
if you'd like.
Yeah.
I think that would be.
They were down here, didn't they do that already?
Mhm. There was a
Yeah,
work
a
session.
future work
sometime
session
back.
would maybe be valuable on that. I mean,
Definitely with the new
just
council.
dispel a lot of rumors, hints, and allegations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's, any further questions?
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Ochicha.
Appreciate it.
Good job. Okay. We're starting with the water fund. Do you need a second, Councilmember Trudeau?
He's
He's
good.
good?
He's up
Okay.
to speed.
He's good. Okay, I want to preface this fund with, we're looking at something a little bit different here. We're anticipating approximately 38% reduction in revenues for 2025 over where we were last year. We can talk about what that might look like. We know we have the water tank project going on. We know that that's been water restrictions. We also know we've had an extraordinary amount of rain this year. So we're simply having less water billing occurring. Because the revenues are so down this year, Ms. Cart and I have gone back and forth about how to budget revenue for next year. So we anticipate that those water restrictions will be over just after the first quarter of next year. So we're taking that into account. We also know we're going to be looking at rate increases in January and February. That work session will be on January the 10th. So we're budgeting a 24% decrease in 2026 from what we budgeted in 2025. So just to restate that a different way, we're projecting 2025 revenues are going to be 38% down. So we're budgeting revenues for next year at 24% down from where we budgeted this last year. I'm pretty sure I messed all that up. I'll go through the memo, it'll make more sense.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Operating revenues. We have modified revenues in the draft budget delivered to City Council on October 7th to reflect a 5% increase in commercial and residential rates. Now that's a 5% increase on where we end this year. And where we end this year is 38% down, okay? Commercial and residential rates, both urban inside the city and rural outside the city, per ordinance you passed in February 2025, we'll be discussing the rate increases scheduled for 2026 at the work session on January 12th and make a final determination on rate increases for next year. So we may actually be recommending a higher rate than 5%. We'll see where we land at the end of this year, okay? Updated revenue figures. Commercial sales inside the city, $740,000. Commercial sales outside the city, $1,020,000. Residential sales inside the city, $1,150,000. Residential sales outside the city, $315,000. Other operating revenues in the fund include meter connect fees, water resale stations, and water leases. The revenues from these sources total $167,000. Additional revenue streams include marijuana cultivation fees, bad debts and penalties collected, jobs completed as part of new development, sales tax commissions, and miscellaneous revenues. Total operating revenue, $3,629,400. Those are the operating revenues. Non-operating revenues. Anticipated grant revenue in 2026 includes $1,149,000 in federal grants, which are already under contract. And as of now, impacts are unknown due to the government shutdown, as well as $750,000 in state grant revenue, which is also under contract. The DOLA water tank grant has a remaining $653,414. Okay, now that is federal mineral lease, but it's brought to us through DOLA, which is a state agency, so there will be no freeze on that. They do not grant the money until they have it, so they've got the federal mineral lease on hand. ARPA funds, $1,067,649. Now we have those funds, we've been drawing interest on them. We've just taken them out of the interest-bearing account and need to expend those by the end of next year. CDS, that is a congressionally directed spending request that went through Senator Hickenlooper's office. $1,149,000. We do have a notice to proceed on this. However, we have received notice that the staff that oversees this in EPA is on furlough. So we don't know how to speak to those impacts today, other than we're watching it and we're talking with them. Then DOLA Old Cypress Road grant, that's another DOLA grant, state money, $750,000 coming from state severance tax. Additionally, the fund is anticipating interest income of $150,000 and has current remaining balance of $2,453,742 in the state revolving loan fund, which we're going to use, as Mr. Vigil reported last Tuesday night. We're using it to complete the tank project, and the remaining funds will be used for Old Cypress Road in 2026. So the total non-operating revenues are $4,502,742. And once again, there's no transfers into the water fund planned for 2026, making the total water fund revenue $8,132,142. Any questions on revenues in water? Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll keep going then.
Oh, wait, real quick, we don't have any deferred taps or any of that, or any of that stuff going on right now?
There's nothing representing that
Oh,
in
yeah.
the budget.
Oh, okay.
Operating expense. This includes 13 employees which work in both operations of the water treatment plant, that's 3 employees, and the water distribution crew, that's 9 employees, and the management of the fund, that's 1 director. Additionally, this fund pays for 1/4 of the salaries of the 7 employees in the utility billing department. This budget's primarily flat with a slight decrease in property and liability insurance through CIRSA. That insurance is $202,214, or a 19% increase. You can see that this particular fund insures more properties than several of our other funds. It has the highest insurance in comparison with the power fund, which was around $90,000. So a slight decrease in pilots set at 3.75% of revenues, or $120,937.50. And the reason that's gone down is because we budgeted less revenue, therefore pilot is less because it's based on overall revenues. Those revenues are generated from the sale of water to customers, and we're anticipating those restrictions to extend into 2026. There's also a slight decrease in service reimbursement, making it $206,901, and I covered the reason that that's decreased in the last fund. We're not expecting many increases in expenses related to the operation of the transmission stations, distribution lines, or water treatment plant, North Lake or Monument Lake. We have made some modest increases in operation and maintenance line items within each of these sections to account for the rising cost of parts. Additionally, we have budgeted $257,255 to complete the second phase of the Monument Lake expansion study. You approved the first phase just a couple of months ago, and this is Mr. Ramirez's project he presented to you this summer. Transmission stations, operationally, we budgeted $68,700. Distribution lines, $573,750. Chlorination systems, $600. Filtration plant, $190,000. North Lake, $51,000, and Monument, $274,955. That makes the total operating expenses $4,415,279.50. Non-operating expenses. Several expenses included in capital outlay are the 3 major infrastructure projects, as well as debt and increased payments on the SRF loan. The SRF loan was originally $3,450,000. We've started paying the debt on that this year. These numbers will be updated prior to the first reading of the budget ordinance in November to reflect grant and projects amounts that are anticipated through the end of the year. So what we're showing you now is grant and project expenses that we've drawn down as of the 1st of October. We'll be updating that one more time with anticipated costs through the end of the year. Water tank project expenses as of the 1st of October, $2,642,253. Water distribution line, these, by the way, are the amounts of money available, budgeted available. So in other words, Mr. Vill's been spending that water tank money as fast as he can, so it's going to be a lot less than 2.6 million when you see this in November, because we will have expended that in this year. Water distribution lines, those 4 projects, $1,206,746, and Old Soapers Road, $2,200,000. For total non-operating expenses of $6,419,156, making the total expenses in the water fund $10,834,435.50. So now we get to the 2 analysis that we have at the end of the fund. Operating revenues versus operating expenses, and this is why I prefaced the discussion of this fund, because we are going to have a negative balance in the operating expenses and revenues for the fund. Revenues are $3,629,400. Operating expenses are $4,415,279.15, making a shortfall in operating of $785,879.50. I want to cover the total expenses of the fund, and then I'll come back and we'll discuss this a little bit. Total fund revenues, $8,132,142. Expenses, $10,834,435.50. The difference being $2,702,293.15 under. One of the things that Mr. Hill and I have been discussing, and you're certainly, I'm happy for him to come forward as well, enjoyed the discussion, is we've just not looked at budgeting this way. We've always looked at it holistically as budgeting the fund, but we decided in this I decided that we would look at operating revenues versus expenses, because it's the best measure to tell us if we're actually operating a fund given the revenues that we can anticipate. I can say in 2023, this fund was budgeted and actually came in at the end of the year underfunded by about $300,000. 2024, it actually was up about $100,000. And 2025, we're anticipated being down because of the loss of revenue, 38% revenue. So there's a couple of things operating at once, in my opinion. One, we need to look at it this way so that we know that we are generating the correct amount of revenues to cover our expenses. And if we're not, then we just begin to correct that. That's number one. Number two, we need to look at this in light of the water restrictions we've had in place this year. I can't speak for Mr. Vigil, but I think both of us, when we discussed it, were surprised that we're going to come in 38% less in revenue than we anticipated. So it's on us this next year to figure out what's going on in this particular fund. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at, how we create what the expenses are versus the revenues, where the revenues are coming, and what expenses they can cover.
It's Mark's fault for bringing all these change orders to us.
I doubt that's true, Councilmember Shue, but if you want to talk to him about it, I'm sure he'll come forward. Yes.
I'm sorry. Tara, were you done?
I was.
Okay. Any questions?
I had one. This is kind of, I'm sure, tangential to all of this, but it occurs to me that I wonder, do we incorporate in the budget concerning our use of water anything related to the golf course? Because we give away that water to the golf course.
We do.
And so this year, where we had a lot of rain and we didn't have to give away so much water to the golf course, it seems like that should show some benefit. But it also seems to me that we should include within this budget some acknowledgement that that's where water is going.
Okay. That's excellent. I hadn't realized that, but yes, we can certainly look at it where that would be reflected in the budget going forward.
That's all.
Any further questions, comments?
I'm just curious, because with the golf course, we pay that out of the general fund, correct?
We do not have any expenses related to the golf course budget in the general fund today. we may be amending that before the end of the budget, but we do not as of today.
I was just curious.
We have capital improvement funds for the golf course.
Well, no, I was curious, just piggybacking off of what Trish, question was that, where do we pay that out of when we pay the water?
To my knowledge, I apologize, I did not realize that we gave the water away for free until right now. So
Okay.
I'll have to look into that.
Because I remember it used to come up it used to come under utilities.
Mr. Vigil, do you mind coming forward? Do you have any information related to that?
Now you're asking for trouble.
There we go.
The question, the golf course,
Yeah, because the
we
water,
do not charge for water, they get their water free.
oh, it's completely free.
That's
Oh, I thought it
completely-
came out of their
yeah, nope,
utilities.
Nope, we do not charge for water.
So we'll figure out how we can account for that here.
Okay.
I do have a question, if I may, and I'm sure it's I probably didn't understand specifically what you meant. In operating revenues, where it says the final determination on rate increase must be made by February 2026 for implementation in March of 2026, you said we may be looking at a rate increase then. Is that due specifically to we're selling less product, so the unit of the cost of the product has gone up? I mean,
Two considerations. One, you passed an ordinance this February calling for a 5%
Right.
increase annually.
but I thought you were saying it may be
Two.
higher than anticipated.
Yeah, that's the second part.
Okay.
We may be recommending a higher increase.
But that's what I'm asking, is that if we do have to pass a higher or get recommended to pass higher, is it due specifically to the less volume sold in the year?
Could be more likely if we make that recommendation, and Mr. Veal and I will meet on this extensively before we do. It would not be for the loss of revenue, it would likely more be for the covering of operational expenses.
Right.
Okay. The second question I had, under total operating expenses, you said water tank project expenses, for the 2.6 million, you said that Mark's spending money as fast as he can, so that number is likely to be less.
It will.
If that number is less, we're gonna see a reciprocal,
Revenue reduction.
okay, so those numbers would actually, in effect, this is a worst case scenario, we're probably gonna look better.
Well, if we're reducing revenues and reducing expenses, it's probably gonna break even.
wash.
It'll be the
Okay.
exact same wash.
Okay,
And Mr. Veal, these are the numbers of where he was on these projects on October 1. It'll look quite different by December 31st.
okay.
And we've run it through Waterford or Waterworth?
It's been going through, we still have to go through it this year still.
I made the determination we do that in January 10th with the new council, since they're going to need to make the decision about about rate increases.
Okay, any further questions?
Mr. Veal, did you have anything to add about the
I-
water being down, or anything you wanted to
Yeah,
add?
the one thing I do want to let council know in advance, when Steve Ruger was here, last year he went, or a year before when he was here, applied for a DOLA grant. The one thing he told me is that the only question, concern they had was where the water rates were too low. The money was there, so we got the grant anyway. Well, this year, Lynn and I went to Grand Junction to apply for this DOLA grant. It was $1 million request, we got $750,000. And there was a shortfall of money available, but we got pounded pretty hard. And that was their main concern, is that our water rates are too low. They felt that why should we be giving you this money when the customer should be paying, when your average medium, I think Terry could probably relate to that a little bit more, but we are not nowhere near the average water rate medium in the state of Colorado, but neither are we on our medium household income. So it kind of balances out. So we need to look hard at it moving forward, but where our rates need to be. And like Tara said, we'll look at it closer, like in January, to see if we really are that low according to our medium household income. But, yeah, we got pounded pretty hard when we requested that grant, that we were too low compared to the state.
One reason we've always been able to hold it low is because water is free, Mark. I had to get that out of Linda. Water is not free. And
I've been told that in the past, oh, your water's free, I don't know.
every other jurisdiction has to purchase water. We own water, so we've always been able to keep our rates low. But one thing WaterWorks does, and it's an excellent tool, it will look at your project and tell you if your rates are correct to cover the project. We want to, Mark and I were talking earlier, we want to caveat that. We want to look at it just as operational expenses and see if our rates and our rate increases are just covering operational expenses separate from projects. Then we'll add those projects in.
So just to clarify, we have the expected increase coming,
Yes.
but we are not certain if there will be an addition on that until we move a little further into the future.
Yes, and we want to also see where we end third quarter for this year. We want to see where we get in the next couple of weeks on what we collect.
Okay, and then this will be the same as electric. The reserve funds we'll discuss
Yes.
at a later date. Okay.
Yes, 2 work sessions away.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me just reiterate one thing. I need to put my chairs on again. And I've said this before, previous. I had a copy of the water bill in 1976. Our water bill only was $6 and I think it was 18 cents a month. Okay? When we did the water rate increase, we increased it by 50%. At that point in time, our water bill was $16.50. It only went up a total of $10.32 in 47 years. So we hadn't been raising our rates for those 47 years. Had we been doing that, we wouldn't be here talking about it right now. The last 2 years, we went 50%, then we went, I don't know, it's 5 or 7%. So over the past 49 years, we've only raised our water rates $18.50 over the last 49 years. You know, that's kind of why I believe we're in the position we're in. Cost of materials, labor, everything's gone up more than that. So that's kind of where I see us.
Where would you want the water rate to actually be?
Where do I think we'll actually be?
Well, I mean,
We'll find that
I
out.
think
We're
we
going
need to
look
talk,
running
yeah,
down.
we're going to do some analysis.
Yeah,
for sure.
to really know where we need to be, but that's where I'm thinking is why we are where we are. I mean, over the last 49 years, we've only raised our water bill $18.50. So, like I stated back then, in 1976, you could buy a 4-wheel drive pickup for between $500 and $7,500. Now they're $50,000 to $75,000. So, to give you a good comparison, that's where I think why we are in the shape we're in. But we got our water infrastructure. If you look at the houses and the buildings in this town, they're 80 to 100 years old. So are our water lines in this town. So if we don't start replacing them, we're going to be in big trouble. We need to start looking at that also moving forward. So.
Okay. Any other questions for us? On
I
water?
don't believe so.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we're going to move on to gas fund review. Operating revenues. Once again, we've modified the revenues in the draft budget delivered on October 7th to reflect a 2.5 increase in the gas delivery charge, which was per the ordinance passed in February 2025. We'll also be discussing this in January for a potential for the rate increase in March. Updated revenue figures are commercial sales $1,825,000, residential sales $2,650,000. Other operating revenues in the fund include meter connect fees, bad debts and penalties collected, jobs completed as part of development, and miscellaneous revenues for a total of $66,700, making total operating revenues $4,541,700. The non-operating revenues are simple. It's the interest income we're getting off our reserve, which is anticipated to be $150,000. For total non-operating fund revenues of $150,000. We're not anticipating any transfers into the fund, making the total gas fund revenues $691,700. Any questions on revenues before we go to expenses? Okay. Operating expenses, this includes 9 employees. There's a distribution crew of 8 and a management of the fund, 1 director. Additionally, this fund pays a quarter of the salaries of the 7 employees in the utility billing department. This budget is primarily, has an increase in pilot, which is set at 3.75% of revenues, or $167,812.50 generated by the sale of gas to customers, which has been higher this year due to the cold weather in January, February. We'll see what we get as the months come on, whether that stays high again. There's also a slight decrease in the service reimbursement of $206,901, which I covered in the previous discussion. The purchase of gas varies and is evaluated on a monthly and quarterly basis. We're budgeting $2 million for 2026, which is down slightly from 2025, but equal to our current use. We're not expecting many increases in expenses related to the operation of regulating stations and distribution lines, but have added a modest increase due to the increasing cost of parts. Regulating stations, 6,000, distribution lines, 186,325 for total operating expenses of $4,337,379.50. Non-operating expenses, several expenses included in capital outlay include 3 Red Bell truck, I can't say that, 3 rail truck beds, and the repair of a 4-way cross on Van Buren Street, as well as funding the gas tap fee, the gas tap off of the Walsenburg line. That's $600,000. This also includes a principal and interest payment on the current loan for the automated gas meters in 2018-19. So non-operating expenses are $754,017 for total gas fund expenses of $5,091,396.50. So once again, to the analysis of operating revenues versus expenses, total operating revenues of $4,541,700. Total operating expenses of $4,337,379.50. The difference being a gain of $204,320.50 based on the budgeted operating revenues and expenses. The total fund revenue and expenses is $4,691,700 in revenues, $5,091,396.50 in expenses, and that difference is $399,696.50 in the whole. And that is 100% that $600,000 we have budgeted to do the tap on the tap on Walsenburg's gas line, which would actually save us quite a bit in the long run. So if you have questions for the gas fund, we'd be glad to bring Steve forward. Mr. Crowe? Any questions? Okay.
We have one question.
Thanks, Steve. Mr. Crowe.
Hello, sir.
Good afternoon.
Quick question. So, are we anticipating any decrease because of everyone that's building is building with electric?
As far as decrease in gas supply charge?
Are we seeing people converting more to electric?
They're not
gas?
converting, it's just all the new development is going to electric. Government is giving incentives to go electric and get away from fossil fuel.
Okay.
We don't know at this point how it's going to affect our supply charge as far as pricing of gas. Right now it's been pretty stable. We're paying, I think in August we paid 39 cents a CCF, we're selling it for 43. September was 42 cents and we're selling it for 43 cents. So it's fluctuating, we're balancing out right now. I don't know what it's going to do, we just keep an eye on it month to month. If we see it's going to increase quite a bit, then we're going to have to make a change to our supply charge.
And would we be able to, because I've been asked this a couple of times, but people wanting that are close to city, that are in city limits, that are on propane, wanting to go to gas, are we able to entertain that?
We need to know if we have a gas line near their residence. Just have them reach out to me. We'll investigate it, and yeah, we'll be more than happy to put gas to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and I suspect it was probably too much for this work session, but you said that the $600K for the Walsenburg tap is likely to save us money in the long run. Do we know how long of a return on investment that is going to be?
It won't save us money. What it'll do is it'll give me gas pressure out of the industrial park. Right now, we have a one-way feed that's coming from by the movie picture show house. It goes through the entire city and then goes out to industrial park. With all the development that's been going on in industrial park, we have a CNG station that's put out there, and then we have the asphalt plant put out there. We're starting to lose pressure, so as far as gas development out there, I'm on a limited supply.
I mean,
So what we're trying to do is get a tap off of the Walsenburg line. That's our best option. Run gas and introduce that into our system. It'll be based on a kind of a decrease of pressure when that rig station will actually push gas through it.
I guess one thing we could look at is, and I know would be several steps between this and reality, but we can use it to help revitalize or make the industrial park more attractive to potential businesses going in there. I mean, so hopefully,
Yeah, and going down in the future, we're gonna need to figure something out. And this, like I said, this is our best option at this time.
Okay.
And we've been working on it a few years with Walsenburg. They've had a big turnover in their gas department, their city management, city council, and as soon as we gain a little traction, then it all kind of goes away and we're starting over. We've been doing this for several years now. And we just,
The only other thing I point out, in southern Colorado, electric is fossil fuel. So
it is. It's generated from, all over it is.
it's just which flavor of fossil fuel you want to use.
Yeah. Since they passed that all-electric, the gas usage in the United States has increased.
Yeah.
Since they went to more electric, because they use gas to manufacture electricity.
And, so.
It just puts it all in one place instead of spread out. Yeah, gas usage has increased in the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman.
So kind of just a.
Thank you.
I apologize for my misstatement. That's what I get for freelancing off my notes.
So that's why we have questions.
Exactly.
Okay. Any further questions? I don't believe so. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Sewer fund review.
Carol, we're doing good on time.
We're doing good on time.
Okay.
This one's pretty quick. We've modified revenues in the draft budget, which was delivered on October 2nd, to reflect a 7% increase on both commercial and residential rates. We will be looking at this as well in January. And I just want to remind you that sewer fees are based on water rates. So when water is down, sewer is likely to be down as well. I also want to point out that the ordinance that was passed in February interestingly created a 7% increase in sewer and only a 5% increase in water. So when we get to the bottom of the sewer fund evaluation, it may be why sewer is not falling as far under the mark as water has. So commercial sales, in the updated revenue figures, commercial sales, I guess that shouldn't be sales, it should be commercial charges, $712,000. Residential charges, $1,836,700. Other operating revenues in this fund include bad debts and penalties collected and jobs completed as part of new development and miscellaneous revenues for a total of $50,100. Total operating revenues are $2,598,800. Non-operating revenues is only one, similar to gas. This fund is anticipating a $50,000 income in interest, making total non-operating fund revenues $50,000. We're anticipating no transfers this year into the sewer fund for revenue, making the total fund revenues $2,648,800. Any questions on revenues? Okay, we'll go to expenses. This fund pays a quarter of the salaries of the 7 employees in the utility billing department. This budget is primarily flat with a small increase in pilot set at 3.75% of revenues, making the pilot $95,576.25, which is generated by the service to customers. There's also a slight increase in the service reimbursement. It was $45,000 last year. It's going to be $66,690 this year, which is an expansion to include fleet services, and it'll be an upcoming change on our Jacobs contract. The way that the contract has worked is we provide $100,000 to the beginning of the year in rebatables, and those are anticipated expenses like what we're going through. And Jacobs employees charge the rebatables account and draw down on that $100,000. Well, in the contract, it stated that the fleet repair and maintenance was being done by Jacobs, but what was happening is, and it has since the beginning of the contract, they take it to a local shop. The local shop repairs the vehicle, then they charge it to the rebatables. So we were paying for it that way. We've run into a couple of really expensive repairs where it would have cost the rebatables $4,000 to $6,000, yet we were able to do that repair for around $1,000 by doing it internally through fleet. So we are amending the contract next year for us to take those fleet charges back. That means the rebatables will be used less because they won't be used for fleet maintenance. However, Jacobs will continue to buy the fuel associated with those vehicles. So I did increase the service reimbursement charge to include the salaries of the fleet personnel for the city charged to this fund. So any questions about that? Okay. Included in the budget for 2026 is funding to complete a master plan for the wastewater treatment plant for $250,000, and the depreciation schedule has increased as a result of the purchase of the vac truck in 2025. So we're seeing the depreciation schedule's much higher this year. The contract with Jacobs increases in 2026 to be $1.5 million. This is a 4% increase over 2025 and part of the 15-year agreement council has approved with Jacobs. Beyond that contract, there's no major increases in treatment and collection. So total operating expenses are $2,636,831.25. Non-operating expenses includes one item, and that is $250,000 to replace the building around the headworks. The current building is actually held together with straps, and when the wind blows, the building actually moves with the wind, making the total sewer fund expenses $2,886,831.25. So now we get to the analysis, operating revenues versus expenditures. Total operating revenues of $2,598,800. Total operating expenses $2,636,831.25 for a total a difference of $38,031.25 under at a loss. So once again, it's possible that because we're increasing sewer rates at higher percentage than water rates, that may be some of what we're seeing here. Total fund revenues versus expenditures. Total fund revenues $2,648,800. Expenses $2,886,831.25, making a loss of $238,031.25. So that accounts for the loss in operating revenue and expenses, and also the master plan that we need to do so that we can anticipate what investments we're going to need to make at that plant, given that the permitting for that is coming up in the next couple of years. We're anticipating new regulations are going to impact us significantly. Any questions about that? I think you can wrap up many of the things we discussed with the water fund into the sewer fund. Do you like the way we're looking at it, revenues, operating revenues and expenses versus total fund?
I think that's a good way to look at it, definitely.
Okay.
I just have a general question. And
Sure.
I feel like I should know this, but every fund we've discussed today does have, is net negative. Each fund does have a sufficient reserve at this point
It does, and we're gonna discuss that in the next couple of weeks. That discussion of the fund, we've never done reserve funding discussions as part of budgets. We need to after doing this report and
Okay.
seeing that everyone was net negative. And then that will also lead to next year's discussion. We need to talk about a reserve policy
Okay.
in all funds, including general fund.
Okay.
Okay, the proposed schedule for review includes 3 work sessions and 2 meetings. We've now held the general fund review. We held a public hearing last Tuesday night. We've held an enterprise fund review. Next work session is going to be capital improvement, economic development, lottery, and tourism. I'm not going to put anything else on that review because we have to make some decisions in capital. So I'm going to present a budget memo similar to this, but I'm going to give quite a bit of analysis on capital. We're going to have to make some decisions on where you want to go. And then first reading of the budget on November 18th, and then on the next work session, I will add a fund review. And then we can make changes right up to December 16th, which is final reading and adoption of the 2026 budget. I just want to remind all of you and the public that the draft budget is available for view at City Hall and the library and has been since October 7th, and that this schedule, the posting and the availability of the 2026 budget is in conformance with the City of Trinidad Home Rule Charter. And that's all I have for you today.
Yes.
All right. Before we close the work session, is there any further questions?
No, sir.
All right, that being said, that will conclude our work session, and we will have executive session or special meeting, I should say. I guess we can just give a few minutes from the room to push for.
Okay.
So unless you're needed for the executive session, you're free to leave. Thank you very much.